They told me I was a madman, a reckless dreamer. They said I'd go bankrupt before my first car ever hit the road, but what they didn't know was just how close they were to being right. It was Christmas Eve 2008. While most families were unwrapping gifts and clinking champagne glasses, I was alone, staring at a single sheet of paper that would decide whether Tesla lived or died. I could feel the ink drying on the page, my hands trembling, my entire future bleeding out with every heartbeat. I had one shot left, and even that wasn't really mine to control. You see, people think they know this story. They think Tesla was some overnight Silicon Valley fairy tale. A genius billionaire disrupts the auto industry and saves the planet. But the truth is so much messier, and nobody really knew how close it all came to vanishing overnight. Back then, Tesla was just an idea clinging to life on borrowed time, an electric car that could outrun a Ferrari. Investors laughed in my face. The big automakers scoffed. They called me arrogant. They said the battery would never work. The supply chain was impossible. And the oil industry, they wanted us buried before we even began. But maybe they were right, because the truth is, I almost buried myself. Before Tesla, I'd already cashed out of PayPal. I was supposed to be set for life, a $180 million in my bank account. I could have bought an island. I could have retired at 30. Instead, I dumped nearly every dollar into two companies everyone swore would fail: SpaceX and Tesla. Most people never get to see their life's work balancing on the blade of a knife. But that's exactly where I found myself. And it all started with a simple promise to prove that electric cars didn't have to be boring. The Roadster was our first big bet. A sleek, shiny, silent beast that turned heads on the highway. For a moment, it felt like we'd done it. We were the future. Investors lined up. We took deposits from starry-eyed customers who wanted to believe they were buying a piece of tomorrow. And then the first crack appeared. Manufacturing was a nightmare. The transmission failed. The batteries overheated. Cost doubled, then tripled. Suddenly, the 80,000 car we promised cost us $140,000 just to build. Every time we fixed one problem, two more took its place. We were bleeding money faster than we could raise it. And as if that wasn't enough, the world was about to implode. The global financial system cracked open like an egg dropped from space. Lehman Brothers collapsed. Investors vanished overnight. Credit dried up. Everyone was running for cover, and nobody wanted to bet on some unproven electric car company. I remember sitting in my car, watching my phone light up with messages from desperate employees. They wanted to know if they'd be paid next week. I wanted to tell them yes. But the truth, I didn't know. Every night I'd go home and look at my kids sleeping, and I'd wonder, what have I done? I'd risk their future for a dream that might never come true. But the worst part, I couldn't stop. I'd put in every penny I had left. I even borrowed money from friends to pay rent. At one point, I was sleeping on friends' couches. I was the CEO of two companies, and I was technically broke. SpaceX wasn't doing much better. 3 rockets, 3 explosions. Each failure burned through millions of dollars we didn't have. Investors told me to pick one. Save one company. Let the other die. I refused. People love to call that bravery. I call it desperation. I wish I could tell you there was some brilliant master plan, that I knew I'd pull it off in the final seconds. But the truth is, I was terrified. I was days away from closing Tesla forever. I'd already laid off half the staff. The rest were hanging on by a thread. And then a miracle. On December 23rd, 2008, after months of begging, pitching, pleading, Daimler agreed to invest $50 million in Tesla. It saved us. By the slimmest margin imaginable. The ink dried on Christmas Eve. We didn't win because we were smart. We won because we survived long enough for the world to change its mind. Survival was the strategy. But here's the part no one talks about. The aftermath, that single lifeline, didn't make Tesla a guaranteed success. We still had to claw our way through years of near bankruptcy. The Model S launch almost failed. We faced lawsuits, factory shutdowns, supply chain chaos. I lost friends. I lost my marriage. I became a punchline. the billionaire meltdown. People loved to watch me fall apart on Twitter. But every time the company teetered, every time we stood at the edge, we found a way back. And yet even today, I wonder at what cost. They say success is the best revenge. But nobody tells you how lonely it feels when you finally get there. And you look around and half the people you started with are gone. Sometimes I wish I could go back and tell that terrified kid on Christmas Eve that it'd be worth it. That Tesla would survive. That the Roadster would lead to the Model S, the Model 3, the Cybertruck. That we'd force the entire auto industry to take electric cars seriously. But I'd also tell him something else. I'd tell him that every great dream has a hidden price, that sometimes the only way to keep a dream alive is to sacrifice parts of yourself you never get back. You don't see that part on magazine covers. You don't see it in the stock charts or the tweets, but it's always there. A ghost behind the glass walls of the Gigafactory. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: dream big, be bold, stare down the impossible. But know this, the higher you fly, the harder you'll fall when the world stops believing. One bad week, one bad decision, and everything can vanish. That's how Tesla almost died. Not with an explosion, not with a scandal, but with the slow, silent suffocation of hope. And nobody knew. But maybe now you do. What would you risk to change the world?